If you send me an email and say, hey, I'd like to reach out to your whoever it is, I'll introduce you and I'll let them know that you're going to go through an interview process, and then you can go and talk to them.
I ask folks in the interview process, Mario, how do you make market contact?
So pre-hello to hello, hello to close. 70% of the work, this is getting that first conversation. 30% of the time that you spend here is 70% of your strategy.
And the reason why we have invested in SDRs is it does improve market contact, but it also gives us that farm system.
The Modern Selling Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Modern Selling Podcast. And Modern Selling Nation, I'm excited to bring you some new talent that's going to give you some great insights on scaling enterprise revenue, enterprise teams. And I'd like to welcome my friend, Mr. Adam Block, who is the Chief Revenue Officer of Motive. Adam, welcome to the show, my friend.
Mario, thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's do me a favor. Modern Selling Nation wants to know who you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I obviously said you're the CRO, but a little background about yourself. And then I've got, feel free to take some time to talk about Motive, what you guys do. And then I've got a very special question I want to ask you.
Oh, all right. Thanks for the time. Super excited to meet your audience. You have a great following here. I lead global sales, account management, and strategy, implementation, partnerships, sales development, all the revenue functions for Motive. We've got nearly 4,000 employees today. About 2,000 of them roll into the revenue organization. So it's a pretty broad global organization. My background is, of course, in sales, and I was an entrepreneur, although a failed entrepreneur. I ran sales and marketing for a small business for 7 years. And then I worked with a company called Medallia, and we went from about 40 million when I joined to about 800 million when I left in revenue. And we went public. We were bought by Thoma Bravo for about $6.4 billion. And then I made my way to Motive, and it's been a great run since I've been here. Motive, the place where I've been for the last 3 years, has been just a tremendous place. It's an AI-powered operations platform that's specialty built for the physical economy to run safer and more efficient and more profitable operations. And what I mean by the physical economy are organizations that have physical assets or that move people, that move goods, and provide services. So think agriculture, oil and gas, construction, manufacturing, food and bev, utilities and energy, any kind of field service, your tree companies or pest control. And of course, lots of public sector as well. And what's unique about Motive specifically is that we're the only solution that allows for safety and operations and finance teams to manage their critical components, their drivers, their vehicles, their equipment, their fleet-related spend in a single place, and leverage AI to do so. So our AI is proven or by industry testing and customer head-to-head trials to be far more accurate than anything else out there. And ultimately, it's led us working with some of the world's greatest companies like FedEx, Halliburton, Cintas, Lumen, Coolsys, most seeing very immediate results, oftentimes up to an 80% reduction in safety incidents in the first 12 months. So not only is it having an impact on their operation and their customer experience and their profitability and productivity, but it's helping people to get home safe to their families.
Hey, safety is what it's all about, and getting home safe, you can't beat that. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that and giving a little background about Motive. Clearly, you are a leader of leaders, and you've got a fairly large organization as well. So this is going to be a great conversation. But before I ask you some of the first questions about this enterprise scaling, especially talking about your experience with Medallia, now over at Motive, and some of the things you guys are doing, I always ask all my guests this very special question, and I'm looking for something juicy, Adam, or maybe whatever it is you're willing to tell us. But tell us something nobody knows about you, even if they're looking at any or all of your social profiles.
Well, this one's maybe a little embarrassing, but it was I'm thinking you're putting me on the spot here. I'm a pretty public person, so people tend to know a lot about me. But maybe one of my guilty pleasures. So some of my favorite music is the cheesiest stuff you've ever heard in your life. So I think of like deep 80s tracks that are really, really cheesy. It's funny. This is something that maybe my wife knows, but that's about it. I don't. That's not really something I publicize. But if you're around me and you see me listening to some music that I think I heard Joe Rogan recently talking about how bad the music was in the '80s, and it hurt my heart because this is the music that all the synthesizer and all that cheesy stuff seems to be what I keep gravitating back towards. So, kind of an interesting one there, a little embarrassing, but it is what it is.
All right, well, now you've piqued my curiosity, so tell me one of your favorite cheesiest songs, because as soon as you said that, I thought Weird Al Yankovic. That's what I thought of, but I don't think you're talking about that. Maybe you are.
No, no, it's not that. It's all your Hall and Oates. It's your now there's some cheesy stuff in there, like Waiting for a Star to Fall, which is an old, like really bad, cheesy song that I'd seem to listen to from time to time, or so a lot of the Whitney Houston tracks and folks that are around her. I'm on that, but then it gets a little bit worse, I have to admit. But it seems to be what I go back to that at the time felt good, but when you listen to it today, you realize that it didn't quite have the beat that we got in the '90s and the 2000s with all the hip hop getting real popular.
Hey, to be very, very fair, my TikTok feed and Instagram feed are filled with Whitney Houston and Celine Dion and Dionne Warwick. So I'm a lover of that music, man. So let's not make fun of cheesy '80s because I'm there with you.
I love it. I love it.
All right, well, let's get into some meat and potatoes here. Clearly talking about your background, you identified some of the things you did as a leader. Especially you talked about Medallia, and now with Motive and what you guys are doing there and scaling the enterprise. A lot of organizations are challenged in terms of scaling high performance enterprise sales organizations and sustaining that without compromising really rep performance and deal quality. How do you do that? What are some of the things that you have implemented, frameworks, playbooks that are associated with that question there?
Well, I'll start with you have to want to do it. And I mean that you have to have support from the board, from the executive team, and from your product organization. If you don't, then one of those is going to fall down and it's going to create a poor customer experience, or you're going to lose investment if it takes longer than you expect. So we had that here at Motive, and we had the luxury of a really high performing mid-market commercial and SMB business, that we'll generally call down market. You are right. It is very challenging for an organization to not only make the decision to go up market, but to build it out, to have the patience and to build all the playbooks around those components. So step one, do no harm, right? I mean, we had at that time when I joined the business, hundreds of millions of dollars in ARR. It was 95% non-enterprise. And so we had to make sure to protect those clients, make sure that they continue to get a great customer experience. And so we had to build distinct motions. I mean, the whole business was built around those smaller clients. And so SMB, mid market, and enterprise, we had to preserve what was working while scaling these new segments. And to your point, that did mean that we had to build new playbooks when we brought folks in. And that was step two. Find great people. They will find a way. If you hire A plus talent, and I mean hold a very, very high bar here, they will learn your product, they will learn about your customers, they will learn about your operations, and they will succeed. That has been a not so secret formula for many leaders over decades, but we've run that play and it has worked well. And then, of course, we gave them all of what they needed. We showed them here's the impact of the program or the technology. Here are the ways in which we're going to work with an organization. Sometimes that can be very challenging if you're in a horizontal SaaS business that can work with lots of different departments in different ways. You're kind of a hammer looking for a nail. Motive had a little bit more of a defined use case or set of use cases for our customers. And while we're a wide platform, it's not everything to everybody. And so we're not Salesforce, right? We're much more targeted, and that means that we can ramp folks much quicker. And so we defined what that meant. We updated our processes. We updated our account universe. We invested in those in the people and the platform. We grew the enterprise organization nearly 10x in 7 quarters. So just to give you an idea of how fast that was, we went from under 10 quota bearing headcount to over 100 in about 7 quarters. And obviously, that's led to many of those customers I mentioned before. The Active Environmental, Mavis Tires, Lumen, FedEx. We have great partnerships with many of the world's greatest companies, and so it's definitely worked.
Appreciate that. So, playbooks, people, and process, I think is what you mentioned. If I were to put that or summarize that, let's go back to playbooks and let's go back to people. First, playbooks. Talk about what everybody talks about playbooks, and as a leader, I want to really vet that out. We've got enterprise leaders who are listening in, sales leaders, marketing leaders, enablement leaders. What does that look like, both strategically and tactically, to other leaders who are listening and saying, I'm trying to do the same thing, but I'm struggling, only growing at a rate of whatever it is, 10%. Maybe not even that. Maybe it's less. What does that playbook process look like?
Sure. There are three components that we have found to be successful. So the first is you need to understand the product, right? Who we are, what we do, how we do it different than others, where we've done it before, and the impact that it has. Kind of like I shared at the beginning of this podcast, right? And so you need to understand what we do. And then you need to know how the product impacts the customer. So there's a very that's actually quite simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And that's in foundational education because you'll lose credibility if you can't talk about your product in a meaningful way with customers. Number two is that your leadership and your ecosystem must have very, very clear expectations of you and from you. So one of the things we do here at Motive is we outline this is precisely what's expected of you in your role. That might be something that's a metric, right? We expect you to generate X amount of meetings or X amount of demos, or it could be something that is educational. You go through this certification, or it could be something that's behavioral. Here's how you run your hygiene. So we find that in order to hold folks accountable and ensure that everybody is held to a high bar, we have very, very clear expectations with everybody. They are written. There's no confusion. And then part three is how do I do it? Right. So I think that's where people start usually in a playbook. It's here's how you go and do it. Right. You target this persona and you do this thing. But actually, it goes deeper than this, Mario. It is what is the philosophy of our value prop? And how do we approach an organization and help them to realize that? So at Motive, we built what we call the Motive Value Architecture. And this is a proprietary internal thing to make sellers better. They are better sellers for having worked here than they would be otherwise because these skills are transferable. But ultimately, you need to be able to have a discovery. You have to, it's the client's idea. You can tell them, hey, we have this thing we want you to do, and you're going to get this impact. But if you take a moment to ask the client or ask many different stakeholders with the customer what it is that's happening in their world, and you can play back to them, here's what I heard you say about why you want to do something. And here's why I heard that it's urgent that you do it. And then we can take our differentiation and pinpoint why it's meaningful to those situations. So it's those three components. One is education and knowing what our market does and how our product works. The second is that you have to have effectively the right expectations, and that includes policies and comp packages and all the things that come along with it. And then part three is having a unified language, a unified philosophy on how you're going to approach an organization. Hidden in that, which shouldn't be hidden, is heavy leadership engagement. And, if I'm an AE and I'm not getting support from, it's one thing to get support from my SC. I mean, I should expect that. It's one thing to get support from my SDR, but am I getting support from leadership? Am I getting support from product? Am I getting support from the post-sales organization? Am I getting support from legal? And so we also place expectations on those groups, and it makes for a very productive and frankly uh, happy, if, for lack of a better word, place to work.
Appreciate that. And with the size of your sales organization, this can become very complicated very quickly, right? Especially when you engage larger or other departments, not larger departments, other departments in the organization. I worked for the most part in my career in the Fortune 100 space, and boy, let me tell you, other departments like legal, product, and pricing, special pricing, were usually not sales enablement. And there's always this struggle between those departments, right? So I appreciate how you've brought, even bring along those other organizations and set expectations. Let's go to the
Mario,
people.
if you don't mind, I want to comment on that.
Yeah.
There is, it's interesting. I do lead our enablement organization, and we talk about uh, enablement in those two sort of camps. You have kind of process oriented enablement focused people. So again, how do you use this product? Right, product updates, or here's how these systems work, or here's how this process works, or here's where you go. And it's critical. People need to know how to do their jobs. But then you have the other side of it, which is how do I make you more effective in your role, regardless of if you are an SDR or if you are a sales engineer or if you are a sales leader, right? And so we really try to put A plus people in both of them. And what I find with enablement is that oftentimes enablement folks will try to convince you that they are great at both. And that's usually not the case. One is better at project management, and the other one is better at helping you to improve your own skill set. So we're very intentional about that.
Well, on that line, then let's talk about people, because one of the things you mentioned in your playbook here was finding the right people who will perform. And there's a philosophy that we share is great people begets great people, right? And furthermore, that most of us want to aspire to be great. Some of us deliver, and we never fail. And so we bring that drive, that passion, that desire. How do you find great people? Is it the gut? Is there some systematic process that you use? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. There is a gut component, but I will bring the science first here. So we have what we call RAD. This is resilience, accountability, and discipline. We talk about these values in our go-to-market organization. We say that's rad. It's just kind of fun. But resilience, right? It's bouncing back from your challenges, but bouncing back with a renewed vigor. Accountability, owning your outcomes, good or bad, and discipline, right? Doing the really hard things, doing the right things, right? Even when they're really hard to do. And so part of our interview process is to try and tease those things out. It's to try to understand if we put somebody in a challenging situation, right? Maybe we show up late. Maybe there's I don't know. There's something that happens, right? How do I make somebody a little bit um not uncomfortable? That's not the goal. It's how do I put something unexpected into the conversation and see how they react to it. That's one way to do it. We also have them interview with a lot of different folks, both for our benefit, so we can learn about them, and for their benefit, right? They're going to choose a company, and so it may as well be a place that they want to spend, their waking life. Do they enjoy the people? So we do use that lens. There's some other components as well. We are not here motivators. Not I know that may seem counterintuitive, but I don't motivate people. I try to hire motivated people. And the idea there is that we can guide, lead, teach, coach, maybe inspire. But the person has to have an internal drive. And so part of what we're looking to assess in an interview process is what proof do you have that you have that internal drive? Not every single role requires that, by the way. I mean, most do in a revenue organization, but we really try to tease that out. More recently, we've also been asking more about technology. How do you think about AI? How has that been impacting your world? Not so much to look for ideas and say, "Wow, you really blew me away with that Chat GPT prompt." It's just, do they acknowledge that things are changing? right? And are they of a growth mindset, or are they of more of a fixed mindset? But we take them through an interview process. We do a panel session. That's changed from time to time over the years, but it's usually some kind of a scenario. We try to make it as real as possible, so it's not to trick the person. It's just to get a sense of how do you answer questions. If somebody comes in and they're being challenging, how do you respond to that? So Mario, this is a performance art. That's what we are in sales. It's not. We're not scientists, right? It's not all a math problem. So somebody has to be situationally aware and agile and audible ready, as I'm sure you've heard from many of the other sales leaders you've talked to in the past. The more we can assess those things in an interview process, the better. I will say that it varies between our segments. I mean, we have SMB and commercial that are very transactional, and you're going to close a deal within one, two, three conversations. And we have enterprise and strategic, and those deals are oftentimes 12, 18 months, sometimes longer. And so there are kind of a different profile of person that we're searching for, because it's just different speeds, different motors, different tolerance for um, anxiety, or not closing a deal in a long time. So we've got to make sure the person has great stamina.
Love that. And you mentioned panel interview. I think when we were talking about in the pregame, I mentioned that I've got a whole entire built out process that I use for the panel. I'd love to share that with you and get your feedback on it. But we've used this both for in person as well as remote. So it's the same exact model, but essentially those that we go through the interview process, whether it's one interview or whether it's 5 interviews, we take them through, and the final moment is your panel interview. And on that panel interview, it's going to be the sales leaders, it's going to be neighboring leaders within the organization, and it'll be a group of your peers as well. So it could be as many as 8, as little as 3 that are sitting on the panel. But that having been said, we give very specific instructions. We say you've got 30 minutes. In that 30 minutes, you've got essentially 5 minutes for introductions. You've got 15 minutes of presentation time, 10 minutes of closing. Now, we actually outline that agenda very specifically because we want to see, can they adhere to timing? Are they keeping track? Are they understanding the dynamics of what's happening inside of the meeting time frame? And then we give them 3 things that they're going to speak about. Number one, they have to create a slide on why you. Why them specifically? They tell us why they think they're the perfect fit for the role. Then they have to do the why the company. So in this case, why motive? And in that section, they're really going through and talking about the company to a prospect and helping them understand the benefits that they can bring and the problems they can solve. We want to see, can you decipher by reading a website? Can you decipher by reading some of the information? And or are you smart enough to even use AI to help you be able to bring these things out? And the third thing is, if you screw up on the first one and the second one, we're going to give you a one that's going to help you out, and it's a teachable moment. And this is something that they can teach us that they're passionate about. We had somebody come in and teach us how they did woodworking, how they actually built knives. And so it's a teachable moment, something that they're passionate about that they can take us through. And it could be anything that just demonstrates their speaking skills and talking to an audience. Then the panel has an entire evaluation sheet. They're scoring between levels 1 through 5. You have to have a minimum collective score of 3 to be able to even be considered. But we're ranking on first impressions, relevant background, demeanor, the why them slide, the why the company slide, the teachable moment slide. Do they believe that they can do the job? Do they understand the commitment, overall impression, presentation skills, and the gut intuition that they will succeed? And finally, would you hire them? And we're asking people to give a systematic approach. In fact, we published this on an article. If you typed in remote selling, you actually see the Vengresso article has come up first, and there's a whole entire section on that inside the remote selling article with the panel interview guide as well for Modern Selling Nation who wants to download that. And so that's our process. And that, I tell you, I have eliminated candidates who I thought were top tier candidates, but then just fell apart. One, because they didn't do the research. 2, they weren't prepared. 3, they thought they could wing it. Or 4, they were horrible presenters in front of a group or in a crowd. And that's exactly what the panel is designed to do, is to be able to help highlight those things that you don't see in usually a one-to-one interview. I'll take a pause there. Your thoughts?
I think it's great, right? I mean, the spirit of what you described is exactly what we do. We do it a little bit different, but what you're trying to apply is some level of real world trial run with somebody and assess things that you can't really find in a one-on-one interview in a room, right? And so that's exactly what we're trying to do. I also think that there's some opportunity here for technology, call it AI, call it whatever, to help going forward. I mean, we don't do a lot of this today, but there's the way of assessing candidates, for the last, I don't know, 50 years, was, go and study your top performers and figure out what their attributes are, and then develop interview questions, and then have other people ask those questions, and then do that whole thing, and then the panel's the same thing, right? It's a lot of judging, and the judger has a lot of subjectivity in how they grade something. And so I think AI can help us assess what are those common links. You may have read a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins back, 20 years ago or something that came out, but it studied the market for these companies that had beaten the market for, I studied the market, studied companies that had beaten the market for 15 straight years. And so, and the attributes that went into it. Well, these days, you can feed a lot of information into a system and it will give you at least an assessment of what it sees to be the similar characteristics, much like we could do if we were to interview our top people, which is something we're doing right now. And that's going to help us develop another perspective on top attributes. It's not that the AI is going to take over. That's not the point. It just gives a kind of consistent, unbiased, third party, maybe panelist. Maybe it just sits in on the interview and it grades it and it gives a certain assessment on it. But I think that's going to be an interesting change to this process. But you're absolutely right. We've used things like role playing. Imagine that you are selling to this organization that's closer matched to what you just said, and then give me a little bit about your background. And we're assessing things like, can they do a succinct pitch? Can they describe themselves without getting lost in is some 15-minute history? Is there real discovery that takes place, or is it just throwing up all the feature function type stuff? We've also tried an account planning approach where it's about of, walk me through how you have built an account plan, and why did you build it this way, and what is your perspective and hypothesis? How are you going to use this to prepare for your meetings? Who are you engaging in those prep meetings? But again, that's a little bit more for an enterprise or a strat type hire. Mid market is one that we would typically do a little bit more role play, and then it changes as we go, more into the commercial and SMB space. But just given the length and how many demos you're going to do, when you're going to engage a FedEx, you're going to meet with them many, many times. I dare say 50, 100 times over a course of months and years. It's different. Your business acumen has to be heightened. Your ability to understand a business model and to engage, you're kind of becoming a deal leader at that point. So we have to assess your ability to do that when you're in more of that sale versus the panel that you described, which I'd love to get my hands on, by the way. That feels something that an enterprise or potentially mid-market person would really dive into, because they're quick. Those meetings are fast, and you got to build rapport. You got to make your points. You got to come away with an action item and a follow-up. And so I definitely think the panel interview will never go away. Now, 8 people, the way you guys did it, that's interesting. That would heighten the nerves maybe for a candidate, especially if it was in person. Can you imagine being across the table from 8 people there firing questions at you? That'd be an interesting experience, I think.
So actually, we for the larger accounts, when you sold into the enterprise, was the larger group. So oftentimes you'd use that as a model for what would it be like if you were actually doing a pitch in an enterprise organization where you've got the buying committee that's much larger. And so we actually simulated that. Smaller accounts, like SMB mid market, it would be a smaller panel. Larger accounts, if you're selling to, would be a larger panel. And funny that you mentioned assessing who they're engaging in the preparation of this. I failed to mention that in the instructions that we gave the candidates, we always told them there are no rules to this game. And we let them say, well, what does that mean? It means exactly what we said. If you send me an email and say, hey, I'd like to reach out to your whoever it is, I'll introduce you and I'll let them know that you're going to go through an interview process, and then you can go and talk to them. Or if you say, "Can I go talk to 2 of your top sales reps?" I'll say, "Sure. Here are 2 folks that I'll introduce you to, and here are 2 others if they don't respond." Right? So I will literally give you the entree to be able to go wherever it is you need to go. And we want to see actually, does that candidate actually use the resources that they've been given, or do they just not even engage with those particular quote buyers in the organization?
Man, I love that. That is so cool. That's right on too. It's interesting. You got a big meeting coming up, and you got 12 people in the meeting, to your point, and which is very common. And and the AE fails to reach out to all of them, and just say, hey, we haven't met, and I'd love to get 10 minutes and just figure out what's most relevant for you so I can walk in the room and speak your language, right? You're gonna find something. And you're exactly right. The interview process is no different. And so somebody absolutely, if you're listening to this discussion between Mario and I right now, know that there's nothing to stop you from reaching out to people at an organization during an interview process. You can reach out to the AEs, you can reach out to other folks. I mean, even if you've had an interview, so if you've met with a leader and you have a meeting coming up with me as just as an example, go back to that leader and say, I'd love for you to like give me some insight on how this is going to go, right? Or who should I talk to that might help me to think about it? Or can I get, should I email at them ahead of time with some ideas and some questions and things that I've got prepared? So, if you take the extra 10 minutes of your life to do the thing that is going to get you more information and more relevancy, I can assure you it will work far more than it doesn't. The worst thing that can happen is that somebody doesn't respond. That's the only, well, I guess the worst thing that happens is somebody calls, comes back and says, "Don't contact me." But that's so rare. People won't usually do that if you're if you're an engagement. So there you
And
go.
usually the people want to help, right? So if you're going through the interview process, a salesperson knows that that a salesperson needs help, and so we usually want to help. We're pretty friendly in that regard. But you nailed it, and this is all about the sales process, and we want to see what that sales process looks like for an individual. And I think that's relatively missing. But you gave me a really, really, really good idea. In fact, I'll send over to you the both the article and the panel interview sheet. But the idea that you gave me was using creating a prompt that we can update our article so that someone could actually put the transcript into, and then boom, let AI be able to do the evaluation of those points as well, and listening to the transcript as well. So that's an update for the article there for the marketing team that's listening in on that particular subject. All right. Great. Well, we kind of went down that rabbit hole. Love that. I want to move over to talking about boosting seller efficiency and pipeline growth, because obviously that's a strong component of the scaling an enterprise organization, and it centers around what we do and how we do. So take a little bit of time and talk about some effective ways that you've seen implemented within the enterprise sales organizations to boost seller efficiency and pipeline growth. And if you have anything related to what you're doing with AI, I'd love to spend some time talking about that.
Wow. Oh, these are big topics. So, our CEO Schwabe, who's also our founder, he tasked me to come weekly with an update to our top of funnel initiatives. I was like, that's a very broad topic, Schwabe. So, no, it's great, and he's right. It's always a focus. It'll never go away. First, let me say that the growth of Motive has been rapid. In part because of the success of our product and our customers, and because we have great people. But it has been rapid, and that means that we've had a lot of folks ramping. And so when you have that going on, there you can expect that you have people at different kind of maturities within the different tenures. And so some people are rocking and rolling and they're closing deals and they are far in their journey, and their pipeline is kind of level, if you will. They're always putting things in and they're closing things out. And some folks, it's just going up. And so the reason I share that is because leaders have to know that the individuals on their teams are at different places in their journey. And for us, that's been a big focus. I mean, when we came in and we went from, effectively 4 sellers in enterprise to over 100, in our organization right now is about 1,200 sellers total. And enterprise right now is nearing 150-ish, middle of next year. So you've got these big organizations. and everybody's at a different point, which means you have to look at each person individually. I mean, obviously, I can look at pipeline and aggregate, but I have to compare it against the effective headcount. How long have people been in seat, and what are the expectations? Going back to the discussion we had earlier, we give very, very clear expectations to folks. But I ask folks in the interview process, Mario, how do you make market contact? Right? How do you get in touch with people? I mean, it's one thing to be here, and yes, you want to have, and oftentimes folks will tell me about what they do when they get engaged. So I start with the discovery questions, and I do this account plan. I'm like, no, 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 no. How do you get them to even talk to you? That's my question, and I'll give the cheat code here. It should be a lot like what you said in the interview process. There are no rules. It literally is by hook or by crook, right? Is what they say. Any way that you can do it. You call them, you can email them, you can LinkedIn them, you can send them a package in the mail, you can get a referral, you can use a partner, you can go to a trade show. There should be no limitation, and especially if you have a named account list, this should be your blanket approach to everybody. All things, all the time, get coverage. I know that sounds excessive, but it's really not. This is your career. It's your opportunity to get engagement and to make a lot of money. And so when somebody gets and then sometimes you hear no, right? Going back to the resiliency thing, sales is hard. Sales is hard, and so you're going to hear no. And especially the bigger the organization, you're going to hear no from this person, and then you're going to hear no from this person. You're going to hear no from this person, and this person going to say that sounds interesting, right? And so it is really, really important that you have a strategy. Also, use other people, right? Use others. Like I send notes all the time. So does our executive organization. So do other senior leaders within the revenue organization. We use customers oftentimes. Yeah, I saw you're connected, or do you know this person in this industry? It's the I dare say lone wolf approach that is that is a recipe for failure. So the more hooks you can throw in the water, and the more people you can sign up to help you and bait your hooks and have their own reel in the water, the better off you're going to be. So I don't feel like it's magic. I think that it's a lot of hard work. Hard work is going to beat talent when talent doesn't work hard. And so that's ultimately what we're after here. We are after people that are driven, that are willing. And yeah, great. And we have formulas. We say, here are the 7,000 ways that you could potentially get in touch with somebody. And we do that for leaders too. If you can't get in touch with this client, here's some other things to explore and check out and go into. Those are areas where AI is helping, by the way. So you asked about AI. We obviously are an AI company, so we're very, very close to this. But I mentioned a little bit about how we are assessing meetings and how we are assessing things within an interview process. Some of that is in its infancy, but there's a lot that you can do here, right? There's a lot of things that in the past were manual, such as business value. Okay, so we have a business value organization. They're wonderful. They're extremely intelligent. And I find that they are really great from a human resource when a customer wants to engage and do sort of a large consultation, and they want that person to come in who's not part of the sales team, but has expertise and understanding business value. And that is a great delivery mechanism. The majority of the rest of that function can be, and oftentimes is, leveraged through AI. I mean, they're seeing what's in our systems. They're seeing what the rest of our customers do. They're seeing what the feedback is from our customers and from the market. They know what industry somebody's part of and what kind of environment they have. So that's one. Another one would be account research. It's that the downside of using AI for account research is that it creates the risk for a lazy rep, right? Well, I've got this account plan now. Well, that's great. The goal was never the account plan. The goal is that you know enough to be able to talk to somebody. So we do that. But it doesn't stop here. I mean, we do territory planning using AI. We do a lot of writing with AI. We do a lot of interesting internal. I'll give you an example. When you have periodic segment reviews, right? So this isn't so much of a sales focus, but it's more of a business review. Let's say that we're going to have a periodic. We want to take a look at our mid-market business. We obviously do that. We'll have larger meetings on a periodic basis, and you can take a full document or a readout or a presentation and turn it into a podcast. And that thing is 10 minutes. And you say, hey, executive team, listen to this before you come. You don't have to read the doc. Listen to this thing, and you're going to be mostly there. So more and more of those kind of things, turning things into videos. We obviously have a lot of video. We're a video company, and we have a lot of audio. We have a lot of different kinds of media that we can use. So if you can turn something into an infographic, if you can turn something into a podcast, if you can turn something into, I mean, it's not going to be as cool as this. Don't get me wrong. It's not like agile, but it does do a good job of like pulling something apart and making it interesting to hear. And so we're starting to do more and more of those things with our customers. But I will say some of that's a little bit too early to put out into, we have over 100,000 customer accounts. So it would be a little bit aggressive and early to do too much of that.
Appreciate that. Something you said earlier got me all excited. We actually did a research, and we did that 4 times, and the last one that we did was 1,297, I think it was, or 95, one of the two. Respondents. They were all sales people from all over the world, every size company. And we asked them, what is the hardest part of the sale? Is it getting the first conversation? Is it qualifying it? Is it getting a proposal out, or closing a deal? And believe it or not, of all 4 times that we did this study, the lowest number was 69% said that the hardest part of the sale is getting the first conversation.
Yeah. But you have to love it, right? I mean, I think that's part of it. I mean, this is where, going back to the interview for a moment, when you're getting to know people, they have to have a love for what they do here, because you don't close deals every day. And if you're an enterprise, got kind of a dirty little secret here. Sometimes those big deals are more of a relief when they close than they are exhilaration, because they take so long and the negotiation is, so that they have to enjoy the process along the way. But you're exactly right. One of the things that we have in Motive that is unique is that we will bring people in oftentimes in a more junior role, say an SDR, and we have a farm system. You go from SDR to become a mid-market AE to become an enterprise AE, and it's exactly because of what you just said. If you are proficient at doing that very first touch, pipeline is going to cure a lot of problems. It really is. And so I think you're exactly right. It is one of the hardest components, but it is not the whole cycle. And so we just have to be good at both of them. But I'm not shocked at all to hear that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I would argue that 70% of the work is spent on the pre-hello to the hello. 30% is spent from hello to the close, but this is 70% of the amount of strategy that you need here on this side, right? So pre-hello to hello, hello to close, 70% of the work, this is getting that first conversation, but the 30% of the time that you spend here is 70% of your strategy, right? So it's interesting. But going back to, okay, so AI, assessing meetings, account research, territory planning, pretty cool idea. Didn't think about that. Any other areas, maybe you said the pre-hello by hook or crook. That's what you said earlier. I love that. Is there any other areas in terms of tools, technologies of how you guys enable your sellers to be able to get that first conversation, as an example?
Well, sure. I mean, we're a decent sized business, right? So we have a lot of ARR. We have a lot of investment into some of the legacy tools. The things that would be like uh, databases of contacts, or a LinkedIn Navigator kind of stuff. So there's all these kind of components, but uh, and we have enablement around them. Going back to the enablement component, that would be the tooling enablement. That would be this. Here's how you do this thing. Not so much here's how you improve your game. By the way, I love how you said earlier something to the effect of, people that are great know other people that are great, or something. My old boss used to say, "Game knows game." So that would be the gut feel when you're meeting people. But yeah, so we also have a really fantastic SDR organization. And the reason why we have invested in SDRs is it does improve market contact. But it also gives us that farm system, right? It gives people a career path. And so I hear so much about AI SDRs, and I don't know. I don't think we're there. I think that there's some components it can do, and there's some automated things that are going to continue to happen with personalization and outreach, and cadences and dialers and that kind of thing. And I think that maybe, very first level of support, we're going to move into AI in time, but a human has to be in the loop if you're going to use AI for something. Otherwise, you're just going to deteriorate the customer experience. And you have to start with the customer experience, especially for existing customers. I will admit that also, or not admit, but share. With all these customers, we have an account management organization. So, there is a group of people that is responsible for that customer experience, and they are responsible for churn, and they're responsible for upsell. But it has to start with the customer experience. And so AI has been a massive leap forward for them to know, here's how a customer is doing. Here are the different indicators on how things are going. But so that would be a great way to think about tooling. If you're asking for specific tools, there's a lot. I mean, there's so many things out there. I mean, Gemini is so powerful right now. You also have an interesting one that I have some great friends who work at this company, but Glean is one that we use internally. It is sort of an internal tool that looks at all things like Slack and email and notes and Salesforce and different meeting note takers and all these things. And you can ask it questions that can serve up information to you. There's still gaps when it comes to analytics and things like that. I mean, I haven't found the perfect tool yet, but I found that many of these capabilities and tool sets overlap. There's a lot of noise in the market right now with all. I mean, every day you should see my LinkedIn. I probably get 10 solicitations every single day from some AI tool that's interested. And, oh, come check us out. And sometimes we do, and we realize that we already have that capability with something we already have. There's Perplexity. There's just a lot of different tools out there that do a lot of different things. But ultimately, you can build agents to simplify your life that can serve things up better, faster, more accurately, and share information better. I think a lot of that is going to become a lot easier. It was interesting the other day. I did research on a private business for a certain reason, and when I went into Google and I just said, "How is this company doing?" And Gemini just served it right up to me. And that level of detail and research it gave me on this business is something that you would have had to pay some, Goldman Sachs analyst 10 years ago and give them a month to go and run that down. So I think you've got to be able to leverage that inside of your discussions and personalization. And we've got to show folks how to do it. But top of funnel is hard, to your question, and it is never going to be easy. I don't see us AIing our way out of that per se. There's an anti-AI movement too. If I pick up the phone and I call Cindy at Acme Co., my conversation is going to be a whole lot better than one that she's going to have with AI, and we're going to have a much better chance of building a human connection there. So I think it's still at the moment is you use all these channels. It's a mix of branding. So you can use that to start conversations. The more personalized you can get with people, the more consistent you are, the more that you're speaking their language. Send them videos, talk about their business. It's really not all that complex. It's just really, really hard work.
Amen to that. And that is why salespeople get paid the most amount of money in the company. This has been a great conversation, Adam. We're coming up on time here. Listen, if someone wants to connect with you, yeah, I heard you say about LinkedIn, you're getting solicitations a lot, but is that the best way to connect with you and say, hey, enjoyed the podcast that I heard? What's the best way to connect?
Yeah, LinkedIn's easy. I mean, I'm right there. Adam Block. You'll find it in 2 seconds. You can send me an email to adam.block@gomotive.com. If there's something else, if I can be of assistance to anybody, we are hiring in virtually every part of our business, certainly in the revenue organization, Mario, and will be for quite some time. Many hundreds of open roles. It's an expansion motion for us, which is just really exciting. It's also international. We have a business in Mexico, we have business in Canada, we have business in the UK, we have public sector. For those folks that are looking for a great place with a great organization that has not only built a platform for you to make a lot of money, but built a culture where you can have fun doing it, you can be happy doing it, and that promotes health for you and your family. It's a great place to be.
Love it. And this is coming up to a close here. I got one final question for you, and that is your all-time favorite movie. What is it?
Huh. Well, this is easy for me. There's a line, get busy living or get busy dying, and that's from Shawshank Redemption. Um, it's a great one. I will say that all right, all right, all right, is another one that I think back to a lot. What a great movie that was as well. But I got to tell you, Get Busy Living or Get Busy Dying with Shawshank Redemption, and the way in which that whole thing came together kind of has it all, right? It has a little bit of of mystery to it. It's got some murder. It's got some jail. It's got some drinking. It's got some it's got some good fun stuff. It's got some love in it. It's all around, man. So that's my favorite.
All right, we've had that many a times on the show here, Shawshank Redemption. There you go. And for all of you listening in right now, if you are actually interested in reaching out to Adam, make sure you say, "Hey, I heard you on the Modern Selling podcast." Personalize that note so he knows where exactly you heard him at. And for all of you listening in right now, hey, don't turn that dial yet. I've got this important message for you right now.
Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a 5-star rating and a review on iTunes. Oh, and don't forget, if you'd like to save 20 hours or more in a month and increase your productivity, go right now and download Fly Message, that's flymsg.io, for free. It's your free text expander and personal writing assistant. Hey, thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.
Watch out.